Great evening, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us again on another exciting Organ Mastery just for you with Mr. Upgrade. Join us again on another exciting episode on the Upgrade Mastery just for you. How are you doing? Welcome again to the new month of July. Yes, this is the first Friday in the month of July 2024. How are you doing? How has the year been for you? Yes, how has the first 6 months been for you? This is the Upgrade Mastery just for you. I'm super excited to have you join us today. It's really humbling to see how far we have come in the year. God has been faithful. I don't know about you, but God has been faithful to me in the year 2024. I have seen a lot of His grace and mercy upon my life. But it's not about me, it's about you, because this is the Upgrade Mastery just for you that we do every Fridays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And we just get to share our experiences from the week, the lessons we learned, the challenges that we had, what stood out for us in the week, and some of the things we want to share with others that we know will probably be a source of encouragement for them. So let's start off with you. How are you doing? This is the seventh month in the year 2024. This is July. So the first 6 months is done. So the first half of the year is done. And like I always tell people, in a football match, it's never over until second half, right? And this is the second half of 2024. It is still the year of the supernatural, and I don't know what you're expecting. But one thing I believe you should expect is to expect to see the supernatural in this year, 2024, for your life, right? Regardless of what you're going through right now, trust me, it only gets better, right? It can never be worse than it is right now. It can only get better. It can only upgrade. So, how are you? How was your week? Like this week has been a stretch. Interestingly, we're going to be talking about stretch today, right? This week has been a stretch. It has been a long week, right? It's been a long week of amazing experiences. And I don't even want to go into my week, but let's talk about you. How was your week? Tell me, what one word can you use to explain how your week has been? Like one word. Just tell me the one word that you can use to explain how your week has been. Was it amazing? Was it splendid? Was it bland? Was it just there? One word, just let me know. And please feel free to share the link with your friends, your enemies, your loved ones, so that they too can be part of what you are part of right now, because sharing is caring. So feel free to share, right? Just share far and wide like you would share a flyer. Just share, right? Put on your status, put on your group chat, just share everywhere so that people can learn the same way you are learning, right? So while we wait for you to tell us what's that for you this week, or what you learned this week, or the experience you had this week, I want to go over the review of our belief system session that we had this week, right? This week was an interesting week, and our belief system sessions were also phenomenally interesting, right? I'm going to talk about it today, and then we'll get into stretch, because there's so much we need to talk about in stretch. Because trust me, in the second half of 2024, it is time for you to stretch. I don't know how your first half has been, but I'm here to tell you that it's time for you to stretch for more, because there's always more. Remember, we had the session much more. There's always more. So if you don't stretch for more, you probably will never experience more. And that is why we need to have this conversation on stretch. But before we get into stretch, let's look at how the week played out for us this week. So we started out this week by talking about, guess what, we started out the week with? By talking about a very interesting topic, which was why you need strategy. You know, we left off last week talking about strategy, right? And all through this week, we'll be sharing our short videos on strategy. So we felt a good way to kick off the new week was to remind people why they need strategy, especially now that they are getting into the month, because you can't continue to do the same thing over and over and over and expect to get a different result, right? So why They need strategy was how we started the week. And we said, you have no idea how much more is possible and available. That is why you need strategy, right? And then we use the analogy of David. Right? So when David and his men came back from battle and they discovered that their enemy had plundered their land and taken away their wives and children and properties, David's men were so disheartened that they wanted to stone him. Right? The men wept to the point that they had no more strength in them. You can imagine men crying. Like just picture men crying, right? And they had no more strength left because they exhausted all their strength in crying. And guess what? Yet in all of this, David encouraged himself in the Lord and inquired of God what to do next. Now, this is very important. You must always inquire what to do next. You see, David knew his best strategy was to know from God what his next move should be. And God told David that he should pursue, overtake, and recover all. And that's what David did. So, waiting on God has always and is still the best strategy ever because God knows all things and you can trust his direction and his leading for your success. Now, 3 simple reasons why you need strategy. Number 1, it helps you to be more, have more, and do more. Number 2, it trumps common sense. Number 3, it guarantees results. So this is why you need strategy, right? It helps you be more, have more, and do more. It trumps common sense and it guarantees results, right? And we said, when it seems like nothing you do is giving you the desired result, then it's time to get the right strategy. You see, strategy takes over, tragedy takes over where strategy is missing. So you see, people will have tragedy when strategy is missing. And you see, strategy helps you avoid tragedy. Now, the best strategy ever is listening and obeying the voice of God for your life, right? And we said strategy many times doesn't have to make sense to the human reasoning. It doesn't have to make sense. That's why you need strategy, right? The best strategy is the voice of God for what God is saying and not what God has said. You know, there's a difference between what God has said and what God is saying. See, what God has said was when God told Abraham to go and offer up Isaac as a sacrifice. What God is saying was, Abraham, stop, don't lay your hands on that child. So if Abraham had continued with what God said and not what God is saying, he would not have seen the ram that was caught in the thicket. So you see, the best strategy is always the voice of God for what God is saying, not what God has said. God told Abraham, God said, sacrifice your son, your only son, the one whom you love. But God is saying now to the same Abraham, do not lay your hands on that boy. There's a ram that is caught in the thicket. Right? So this is why you need strategy. So at least you know what God is saying and not just what God has said. And then I went on from that conversation on why you need strategy and went on to talk about good advice is not strategy. Right? Good advice is not strategy. You know, sometimes people advise you, they say, okay, you know, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this. They are all good advice. But I have come to realize that good advice is not strategy. You see, good advice is not a strategy because good advice does not necessarily make a good strategy. So good advice is not a strategy. It's not. You see, in the ancient text, when Rehoboam was king of Israel, and he went to ask for his peers' advice, what he would do to the people. The elders had already advised him what he would do, but he also went to confer from his peers. And they told him that his peers, they told him to do double of what his father had done to the people. That if the father had punished them with whips, he should punish them with scorpions. And then, when the elders heard it, they said, okay, to your tent, all Israel. And he lost 10 of the tribes of Israel. Only 2 were left with him. He went to take good advice. Some people have got into trouble in their lives simply because they went to take good advice. See, I will tell you, and I'll tell you for free. Good advice is not a strategy. It's not. Right? The earlier you understand this, the better for you. You see, 3 simple reasons good advice is not a strategy. Number 1, good advice can create more problems. You see, let's say, for instance, a girl is pregnant. Someone will give her good advice to go and terminate the pregnancy. In the process of terminating the pregnancy, she may lose her own life and the life of the baby. That was seemingly good advice, but it has created more problems. Because not just the baby that is lost, the girl herself has lost her own life. So, see, good advice can create more problems. You're saying you don't have money, for instance. Someone is giving you good advice to go and use the money you don't have to go and do Naira bets. And then you lose both the money you have left and the money you think you are going to win. So, you see, good advice can create more problems for you. Number 2, good advice is not God advice. Right? Don't get yourself into that saying that the voice of the people is the voice of God. No, the voice of the people is the voice of the people. The voice of the people is not the voice of God. So, good advice is not God advice. Don't mistake the two. I always tell people this: all that is God is good, but all that is good is not God. You must know the difference. Good advice is not God advice. Number 3, good advice is still on the level of common sense. And like you always tell you all the time, common sense is the lowest level. It's the lowest level. You're expected to operate with wisdom, not common sense, because wisdom all the time trumps common sense. You're supposed to express yourself in wisdom and not with common sense. So these are the 3 simple reasons why good advice is not a strategy. Number 1, good advice can create more problems. Number 2, good advice is not God advice. And number 3, good advice is still on the same level as common sense. See, the world today is filled with many good advice that doesn't amount to anything compared to strategy. Anywhere you turn to, people can give you advice. It doesn't amount to strategy. See, Sarah asking Abraham to consider Hagar was good advice, but it did not produce Isaac. Did you get that? Sarah told Abraham, okay, this is my maid, Hagar. Go into her and have a child with her. That was good advice, but it did not produce Isaac. Instead, it produced Ishmael. Are you getting this? Now, good advice will lead you down a path that only strategy can eventually bring you out from. Good advice will lead you down a path that only strategy can bring you out from. Remember this, guys. Strategy always trumps good advice any day and any time. It's always wisdom to choose strategy over good advice. And you see, good advice is good, but strategy is great. And you need to move from good to great. Right? And then we went on from that conversation and we talked about stay ready always. Now, I love this because this was where my week just went on a different trajectory entirely. Stay ready always. Stay ready always. See, you have no idea what's coming. So it's only your best interest that you stay ready always. So tell yourself, I will stay ready always. Write that in the comment section. I will stay ready always. It's always in your best interest that you stay ready always. Always in your best interest. Right? It is always in your best interest that you stay ready always. Now, see this, guys. You have no idea when you may be called upon. So it's always in your best interest to stay ready always. Always in your best interest. You have no idea when you'll be called upon. And you see, in the ancient text, the 5 wise virgins in that parable of the virgins in Matthew 25 were choosing the example of staying ready always. While they went for the event, they took with them extra oil for their lamps. Now, even though they waited long and even slept before the bridegroom eventually arrived, what was important to note that when they were awoken from sleep, that the bridegroom was around, they were ready to go in because their lamps that had been put off, they had put in the oil and their lamps were back on. While the other 5 foolish virgins had to go and start looking for oil at that time. And by the time they came back, when they have found oil, it was already too late. The bridegroom had gone in and the door has been shut. You see, 3 simple reasons to stay ready always. Number 1, you can be called upon anytime. Stay ready always because you can be called upon anytime. Number 2, performance time is not preparation time. The time for you to perform is not the time you use to start preparing. Performance time is not preparation time. Number 3, you seize the opportunity when it arrives. When you stay ready always, you seize the opportunity when it arrives. Now, see this. Staying ready always ensures that you use each day as preparation time for the opportunity that is coming. You've always heard me say this, that those who sweat in training don't bleed in battle. Those who sweat in training don't bleed in battle, right? Preparation time is never a wasted time. Even if the opportunity hasn't come yet, it is not a wasted time. I always tell people this, that everyone would have his opportunity to shine. Prepare and wait. Your time will come. Prepare and wait. And you see, sometimes you miss many opportunities simply because you are not ready when it comes. Hence, why you must stay ready always. You miss opportunities because you are not ready when it comes. This is the reason why you must stay ready always. And you see, interestingly, right, when you don't stay ready always, someone else who stays ready always will always be ahead. Right? That's just the fact of life. The one who stays ready always will always be ahead. And you see, stay ready always because it is a better way to live your life, prepared for whatever happens. A better way to live your life is to stay ready always, guys. That's a better way to live your life. To stay ready always. You are always prepared for whatever happens. So you stay ready always. Right? So this is it. These were some of the things that we talked about this week. And then we went into stretch. And I really want to have this conversation of stretch because I feel it's time that people deliberately and intentionally stretch themselves. Because it's okay to feel like, okay, I'm doing well, I'm trying, I'm okay, I'm not complaining, everything is okay for me. No, it's time for you to stretch. Right? It's time for you to stretch. And it's important that you actually put yourself in that situation where you get to stretch. So, you know the saying that if you stretch a rubber band, it gets to a certain limit where it doesn't return back to normal, right? So I said that when you stretch, you never return back to normal. When you stretch, you never return back to normal. It's never possible. Once you stretch, you don't go back to normal. Now, stretch, 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 right? Now, the S in stretch is sacrifice. You know, when you hear sacrifice, especially if you're from the Nigerian climb, the first thing that comes to your mind is one needs sacrifice. Right? That's the first thing that comes to your mind, one needs sacrifice, you know. But the truth is this, if you truly want to stretch, you will never stretch without making sacrifice. Sacrifice, guys, is where stretch begins from. If you ever truly want to stretch in your life, it starts with sacrifice. Right? It starts with sacrifice if you really want to stretch. Now, this is the interesting thing about sacrifice. Sacrifice is that thing that would take you out of your comfort zone. Sacrifice is that thing that will keep you working when others are resting. And sacrifice is the thing that will make you stay awake while others are sleeping. Right? Sacrifice will make you go the extra mile. Right? Sacrifice will make you burn the midnight candle. Right? Sacrifice will make you do what must be done irrespective of how you feel. So, to begin a stretch, it starts with sacrifice. Now, the thing you need to now ask yourself is, what are you willing to sacrifice? It will not just happen because you say, oh, that you are willing to sacrifice for that stretch. Literally, when it comes to sacrifice, there must be things, there must be people, there must be places that you are willing to sacrifice. Otherwise, you are not ready for sacrifice. Right? See, when you watch those Nigerian home videos, like it was called back in the day, right? You will see that somebody who wants, let's say, wants wealth and prestige and power and prominence, that person will go and sacrifice either the father, the mother, a loved one, the wife, the child. We're going to sacrifice something for what the person wants. Now, that is not only in home video, it's also in reality. Whatever you want out of your life, there must be things you must be willing to sacrifice. So you see, take note of the word, what are you willing to sacrifice? So to sacrifice something is going to be something you would have to do willingly. Now, they don't compel you to make sacrifice. No, you have to be willing to make the sacrifice. Now, scripture reminds us that if you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good of the land, which means there are two responsibilities for you to eat the good of the land. You have to be willing You have to be obedient. Now, question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? For this stretch that starts with sacrifice, what are you willing to sacrifice? You must be willing to sacrifice what is important to you. You know, I always tell people this, that you must know what you must sacrifice, and you must also know what you must not sacrifice. I'll say that again. You must know what you must sacrifice, and you must also know what you cannot sacrifice. See, listen, and I'll be honest with you. What are you willing to sacrifice? For some people, it's social media. For some people, it's TikTok. For some people, it's Instagram. For some people, it's Facebook. For some people, it's just being on the internet. It's YouTube. So for some people, it is Pornhub. For some people, it is OnlyFans, right? For some people, they know what they need to sacrifice. And if you really want to stretch, it starts with sacrifice. You don't sacrifice, forget about stretch. You're just kidding with yourself. You don't sacrifice, just forget it. It's never going to happen. So stretch begins with sacrifice. So the question is, what are you willing to sacrifice? The next question is, who are you willing to sacrifice? Who are you willing to sacrifice? There are some friends you may need to let go. There are some associations you need to let go. There are some WhatsApp group you need to remove yourself and delete. There are some Facebook communities you need to get yourself out of and close. What are you willing to sacrifice? Then who are you willing to sacrifice? See, the truth is, you can't carry everybody on your shoulders and expect to arrive at your destination. They will weigh you down. Even scripture says, laying aside every weight and sin that so easily so besets us, so you can run the race with faith and patience, then looking unto Jesus. Because even scripture knows that you must know who you are willing to sacrifice. God was willing to sacrifice Jesus. The sacrifice of bulls and lambs were not going to cut it. So he was willing to sacrifice his only beloved son. So if you want to stretch, you must know who you are willing to sacrifice. For some people, they need to sacrifice their relationship. Some people need to sacrifice it's complicated. We're in a situationship. All those, what are we now? And I always say, anytime somebody asks you what are we now, remind them, we are the chosen generation, called for to show his excellence. All I require for life, God has given me, for I know who I am. Yes, when they ask you, what are we now? Remind them, we are a chosen generation. So there's some things you must be willing to sacrifice. But the question is, who are you willing to sacrifice? And then the next question is, when must that sacrifice begin? When? When must that sacrifice begin? If you are watching the series Avatar, which I recommend you go watch, you find it on the Mike Bamiloye channel on YouTube, right? Mike Bamiloye channel on YouTube. Yeah, I'm right. Just go search on YouTube Abattoir. Yeah, like 5 seasons now. They're in season 5. You can start off from season 1 and watch, so you can understand the whole story. Right? You must know when the sacrifice must begin. Otherwise, forget about stretch. Forget about stretch. If you don't know when the sacrifice must begin, forget about stretch. So three important things you must know when it comes to sacrifice when you want to stretch. Number 1, what are you willing to sacrifice? Number 2, who are you willing to sacrifice? Number 3, when must the sacrifice begin? If you don't answer this question, sorry, you're not ready to stretch. Now that's the S in stretch. The T in stretch is important, right? That T is training, right? The T in stretch is training. You see, I told us earlier and I'll say it again. Those who sweat in training, they don't bleed in battle. So the question is, do you rather sweat in training or bleed in battle? Which would you rather have? I rather sweat in training than to bleed in battle. Because if I bleed in battle, I may not survive. And if I sweat in training, I will not bleed in battle. So I count my losses. I rather sweat in training and let the sweat even be as thick as drops of blood. Let me sweat that sweat in training than to bleed in battle. We are handing over, handing over, handing over, handing over. We are handing over to Master Jesus. Hey, we think President General among the nation. See, guys, the truth is this: you must realize that when it comes to stretch, it starts with sacrifice and then it moves to training. Training, right? So if you really want to stretch, you must get yourself ready in training. See, the funny thing about training is that you are already engaged with training every day. But just unfortunate that you are engaged in training for the wrong things. Yes, you are learning every day. That's training. But you are not deliberate and intentional with the right kind of training. So not only when you go to a workshop that you are training, no. Right? It's not only when you have a coach that you are training, no. It's not only when you read a book that you are training. See, there are formal trainings, there are informal trainings, believe it or not, and best believe every single day you are involved in one training or another. I'm not only talking about when you get into a room or get into a Zoom call. No, no, no. Every passing opportunity that happens in your life is a moment of training. Every passing opportunity is a moment of training. So if you want to stretch, you need to get yourself involved with training. You need to get yourself involved with training. It's very important. So make time to go for workshops. Make time to get engaged in development, personal development. Make time to learn skills. Make time to be coached. Make time for new knowledge. Make time for teaching. Teachings like this are part of training. Teachings like this are part of training. Make time for learning. It's part of the stretch. It's part of the stretch. And it's very important that you understand this. And there are questions you need to also ask yourself when it comes to training. One, what are you training for? What are you training for? I always tell people, you are training for greatness. You're not training for smallness. You are training for greatness. Right? You are training for greatness. So what are you training for? For greatness. You're training for greatness. You're not training for smallness. You're training for greatness. That's what you're training for. That's what you're training for. You're training for greatness. That's what you're training for, not for anything else. You're not training to show off. You're not training to brag about. No, you're training for greatness because even greatness humbles you. So you're training for greatness. Now the other question is, who are you training with? Who are you training with? Even scripture says, one will chase 1,000. Two, we put 10,000 to flight. Who are you training with? You see, I read a story about the Belgian horse, right? And I want you to Google this. This is a fact that you can Google. And it's so true. Now, the Belgian horse alone can move 7 tons of weight. Alone. The Belgian horse. So powerful. Alone, it can move 7 tons of weight. 7 tons. Now, if you put 2 Belgian horses together, guess what? They can move 15 tons of weight. Alone, 7 tons. Together, 15 tons. But see this, and this is where it blows my mind. If you train the 2 Belgian horses together, guess what? They can move 25 tons of weight. Ha ha ha! That is mind blowing. Alone, 7 tons. Together, 14 tons. But train them together. Train them together. They can move 25 tons. What does that tell you? Training makes a world of difference. And if you need to stretch, you must get involved with training. You must get involved in training. Remember we said when we started, whatever is stretched never returns back to its original size. So you must get involved with training because it will stretch you. It will stretch you. Remember the first time in 2017, I ran a career kickstart class for 3 weeks. I was training for 3 weeks back to back. That was when I broke into that threshold to know that, come on, if it's training, bring it on. Bring it on. I was training for 3 weeks, 21 days, back to back every day for 3 weeks, non-stop. Because that was the duration of the program, and I was the one coordinating the program. So I was training on all the courses, 3 weeks, back to back. Today, I may be tired and exhausted, but wake me up and say, let's go and train. I'm ready. So the question is, who are you training with? Like the Belgian horse. Train with the right person, you can do much more. Alone, 7 tons. Together, 15 tons. But you train them together, they'll move 25 tons. You see, the extra 10 tons comes from the training, the effect of the training. And then the next question should be, when does the training end? Now you know what you're training for. You're training for greatness. Who are you training with? It's very important. And the question is, when does the training end? Training only ends when you are dead. Did you get that? Training only ends when you are dead. So except you are dead, your training does not end. Who you are training with may end. What you are training for may change, but your training does not end. Your training only ends when you are 6 feet. No this and no peace. So as long as you are alive, your training continues. Now, this is not a luta continua victoria stata. No. Your training continues till you are dead. The only time you stop training is when you are dead. So these are things you must put to mind when it comes to church and as regards training. Number one, what are you training for? And I've told you you're training for greatness. Number two, who are you training with? And I've told you you must get the right people to train with the example of the Belgian horse. And number three, when does the training end? Training only ends when you are dead. Now in stretch, the S is sacrifice, the T is training, the R is responsibility. Now, Winston Churchill says this: the price of greatness is responsibility. Simply put, anyone who wants to be great must be willing to take responsibility. The price of greatness is responsibility. So you want to be great, take responsibility. You do not want to be great, don't take responsibility. You must settle this in your mind. The price of greatness is responsibility. And what is responsibility? Simply, it is your responsibility in transforming your values into action. So what are the things that you value? You transfer it into action through responsibility. You see, I'll give you guys an example. So for the past 3 days, I have been stretch back to back. I've been compared for a high-powered event, right? We had high-powered dignitaries around a certain region of the country, right? But I have been able to do this because one of my values is service. And not just service, service with excellence. Service with excellence. Right, you're going to see some of the videos online later. You're going to see some of the newspaper reports about the event. Beautiful, big events. But it was my responsibility over time that gave me the privilege to be part of that event to serve. So responsibility helps you to transform your values into action. Now, question is, why is responsibility important? Why is it important that you're responsible? Why? Nobody would send you when you're irresponsible. Nobody cares when you're irresponsible. Nobody will rate you when you're irresponsible. Nobody will want to associate with you when you're irresponsible. In fact, people will avoid you like a pandemic or a plague when you're irresponsible. So why is responsibility important? It's important because it's what gives you value as a person. What makes for responsibility? Simple. Taking charge of your life. Not blaming anyone. Not transferring things to people. No, taking charge of your life. That makes for responsibility. Doing what must be done. That makes for responsibility. Knowing that if it must be, then it's up to you to be or not to be. If it must be, it's up to you, which means you are taking charge of your life. You're not going to blame society. You're not going to blame your parents. You're not going to blame the environment. You're not going to blame circumstances. You are taking charge of your life. That's you being responsible. That's you being responsible. I'm not going to sit back and be saying, oh, if only. No. Blind Bartimaeus took charge for his life. He heard that Jesus was passing. He was blind, but he heard that Jesus was passing. And when he heard that Jesus was passing, he started to scream, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. Guess what? The crowd told him to keep quiet, shut up. Guess what? He cried the more, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. Cried the more. Why? He was taking charge for his life. And Jesus stopped. And Jesus said, tell him to come. Imagine if when they told him to keep quiet, he actually kept quiet. Jesus would have walked past. See, responsibility is you taking charge of your life. Stop blaming people. Stop blaming circumstances. Stop blaming your parents. Stop blaming your mom. Stop blaming your dad. Stop blaming people. Take charge of your life. If it is to be, it is up to you. Responsibility, guys. Responsibility. It is you transforming your values into action. Stop making excuses. I've always told us excuses at its best are good reasons for bad results. They are the tools of the incompetent, and they that use them are not wise. Take responsibility for your life. Take charge. So what makes for responsibility is that you take charge of your life. Right? And then, why must you be responsible? Because it's the best way to live. Literally, responsibility is the best way to live. It's the best way to live. It's the best way to live. Right? Now, if you must stretch, you must make sacrifice. You must endure training. You must take responsibility. Right? And then you must become excellent. Right? The E in stretch is excellence. You must become excellent. You must practice excellence. And what makes for excellence? Simple. Paying attention to details. Paying attention to details. Right? Don't be average. Don't be mediocre. I've told us. Average don't win awards. Excuses don't pay bills. Don't be mediocre. Be excellent. Be excellent. Wherever you find yourself, be excellent. Because that's how you stretch. Because a lot of people are just average. A lot of people are just mediocre. You must be excellent. You must be excellent. The quality of your service, you being a leader, your results, your efficiency, your reliability, you must be excellent. What makes for excellence? Simple. Paying attention to details. Paying attention to details. Cross all your T's, dot all your I's, put all your full stop, all your commas, paying attention to details. Don't sweep things under the rug. Because even if you sweep it under the rug, the dirt is still there. Pay attention to details. Fix things. Right? That's how you stretch. You become a person of excellence. And I always tell people this, that we are not born excellent. We learn our excellence. Nobody was born from heaven with excellence. No, every excellence you exhibit, you learned it, because excellence is a learned skill. Who's responsible for excellence? You are. You are responsible for excellence. No one else is responsible for excellence. You are. Take responsibility for your excellence. Don't be a mediocre. Don't be a joke that's not funny. Take responsibility for excellence in your life. Take responsibility for excellence. Because you are responsible for it. The level and the degree to which you are excellent is up to you. It's up to you. It's up to you. You must stretch. You must be a person of excellence. You must be a person of excellence. Right? And you see, why must you practice excellence? Because what else should you be practicing? Are you going to be practicing mediocrity? Is that what you want to practice? Come on, is that what you want to practice? Mediocrity? No, you must practice excellence, because that should be your normal. That should be your standard. And I always say this, is when you are outstanding, that's when you stand out. And when you stand out, you become the standard. So excellence helps you to be outstanding, then it helps you to stand out, and then it helps you to become the standard. So this is why you must practice excellence. So somebody will just come in and like, who's doing that? Who's that person? Why? Because you are outstanding. And it helps you to stand out and helps you to be the standard. So they say if you're not being like this person, then you're not there yet. Excellence. If you want to stretch, you must be a person of excellence. Excellence is non-negotiable. You don't negotiate excellence. No. Just like the Americans will say in the movies, we don't negotiate with terrorists. You don't negotiate with excellence. You don't. It's either excellence or excellence. No other option. It's either excellence or excellence. No other option. You must settle that in your heart. No other option. The T, the second T in stretch, is timing. If you're going to stretch, you must pay attention to timing. There are some things you can only do except God helps you. There are some things that you cannot do when you cross a certain age. And then you must be very, very diligent when it comes to timing. You know, there's the saying that if you waste time, you waste your life, because your life is measured in time. To stretch, you do it with timing. Do it with timing. See, trust me, and I'll tell you for free. See, like Steve Jobs says, your time is limited, so don't waste it. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. People are copying people left, right, and center. You're using your time to copy another person. What a waste of time. What a waste of time. Your time is limited. Don't waste it. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living the result of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. You somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. That's from Steve Jobs. When you hear that, what should come to your mind? Timing is everything. You want to stretch, you need to do it with the right timing. Because see, you can do the wrong thing at the right time and it becomes the wrong. You can do the right thing at the wrong time and becomes a wrong thing. Timing is important. Even Ecclesiastes reminds us that there is a time for everything. Timing is important. Timing is important. Now, the question for timing is simple. Why is timing important? Because your life is measured in time. Your life is measured in time. It's the time that the butterfly must get into the cocoon so that it can emerge as the butterfly. Otherwise, it's going to remain a caterpillar all its life. Timing is important. What you must do with your time, don't waste it. Use it wisely. Don't waste it. Because time wasted can never be regained. Don't waste it. Use it wisely. Don't waste it. Right? Why does time wait for no man? I always say this, that even if you take the battery off the clock, you still cannot stop time. Even if you take the battery off the clock, you still cannot stop time. Because time waits for no man. Someone says time flies, and someone replied, but you are the driver. Time waits for no man. Even Jesus said something very striking in John chapter 9, verse 4. He says, I must walk the walk of him that sent me while it is day, for night comes when no man can walk. There's timing for everything. There's timing. Warren Buffett says that you cannot get a baby in a month by getting 9 women pregnant. There's timing for everything. Even scripture reminds us that God makes everything beautiful in his time. Not in your time, in its time. There's a timing for everything. No wonder David could pray that teach me, O God, to number my days so I can apply my heart unto wisdom. Timing is important. Timing is important. Because time waits for no man. You may take the battery out of the clock, but you still cannot stop time. Can't. Right? And then we move on to C in stretch, which is competence. If you must stretch, you must get competence. And you know there are 4 stages of competence, right? The first stage is the unconscious incompetence. The second stage is the conscious incompetence. The third stage is the conscious competence. And the fourth stage is the unconscious competence. All of these stages you go through in everything that you have learned. And if you must stretch, you must become competent. Very important. You must become competent. And you see, question now is, what are you competent on? Very competent on. You see, I hear people say, oh, I'm jack of all trades. Master of what? What are you competent on? You can do all things, yes. But what are you competent on? What is the one if you wake you up from sleep 2 a.m., you are ready to get it done and done excellently well? What are you competent on? I can tell you for free, some people are competent with gossip. And I said all the time that the best gossip ever is the good news. The best gossip ever is the good news. For some people, that's where their competency is gossip. Hey, have you heard this? Oh, have you heard this? Oh, this one is trending. Oh, that one is trending. That's where their competence is. Come on now. Come on. That's a waste of competence. That's a waste of competence. Now, you should also ask yourself, what level of competence are you? Are you on conscious incompetence or conscious competence? Are you on unconscious incompetence or unconscious competence? What level of competence are you? Because there are 4 levels. Level 1, unconscious incompetence. Level 2, conscious incompetence. Level 3, conscious competence. And level 4, unconscious competence. So what level are you? What level are you? Right? At the different things that you do, you are in different levels of competence. That's the truth. But the ones you do well, the ones you do really well, right? The ones you do excellently well, you are always at the level of unconscious competence. You don't think about it, you do it well. It's not like second nature to you. And then you need to also ask yourself why you must sacrifice your competence. Why you must sacrifice your competence. See, I always say this, guys. If you truly want to be satisfied, you must make sacrifice. If you truly want to be satisfied, you must make sacrifice. So without sacrifice, you can't be satisfied. So why you must make sacrifice for competence is because it's the only way out. It's the only way out. It is the only way out. There's no other way. There's no other way. It's the only way out. Finally, the H in stretch is hunger. The H in stretch is hunger. You see, hunger is the only differentiation in people. It is not talent, it's hunger. The difference in people is hunger. Nothing else again, just hunger. The difference between you and I is hunger. How hungry are you? Because the more I'm hungry, the more I put myself out there. The less you are hungry, the more you stay in your comfort zone. So the differentiation is hunger. How hungry are you? How hungry are you? You see, when it comes to hunger, you must ask yourself, what are you hungry for? What are you hungry for? How hungry are you for greatness? I know I often say this that you can teach people anything, but you cannot teach them to be hungry. You cannot teach them to be hungry. The question is, what are you hungry for? What are you hungry for? And I believe that you should be hungry for greatness. You should be hungry for fulfillment. You should be hungry for success. Then the next thing to ask yourself is what fuel your hunger? What fuel your hunger? See, Jacob had his hunger fueled by the love he had for Rachel, that 7 years seemed but a few days to him. What fuels your hunger? What gives drive to your hunger? You must know what fuels your hunger, man. Because we cannot be hungry for the same thing. We cannot. You may want to make millions. I may not want to make millions. I may want to reach millions. Right? You must know what fuels your hunger. And then you must also ask yourself, why must you have hunger? Because you don't have hunger, you become complacent. right? The moment you lack hunger, you become complacent. You settle. And many times you settle for less because you have no hunger. Remember the old saying that the patient dog eats the fattest bone. The question is, who ate the flesh? The hungry dog ate the flesh. The hungry dog ate the flesh. So you see, why must you have hunger? Very important you have hunger. Otherwise, you will be complacent. You will stay in your comfort zone. You will settle for less. You will dwell in mediocrity. You won't see the need to upgrade and do better. No. Once you lack hunger, you will not see the need to upgrade and do better. No, you won't. You just be okay with status quo because you lack hunger. And let me tell you this, there are three things that you will notice when you start to stretch. Number one, your thinking will be different. Number two, your speaking will be different. Number three, your behaving will be different. Those are clues that your stretch has started. What you're saying, what you're thinking, how you're behaving, they're all going to be different when you stretch. Because remember, when you stretch, you don't return back the way you used to be. So how you used to think before is gone. How you used to speak before is gone. How you used to behave before is gone because you stretch. Paul encapsulates this very well when he said, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. I thought as a child. I understood as a child. But when I became a man, stretch, I put away childish things. Is this making sense? I think you see that in 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, when I stretched into manhood, I put away childish things. You see, you always notice stretch in your thinking, in your speaking, in your behaving. You always notice it. You will always notice it in your speaking, in your thinking, and in your behaving. Guys, this is a very important wake-up call for us, especially in this second half of the year. It's time for you to stretch. It's time. It is time for you to stretch. And I'm here to help you if you're ready to stretch. So guys, this is the much that we can take on this episode on the Upgrade Mastery Just for You with Mr. Upgrade. And I know for sure there's a testimony coming your way this week. And I can't wait for you to share that testimony when we come back next week. Remember, there's always more on the upgrade side of life. And that's why we encourage you to always leave good behind so that you can upgrade. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Do well to share this with your friends. Some of the feedback we got during the live said it only gets better. So true. When strategy is missing, tragedy takes over. So true. Thank you so much for sharing that. Prepare and wait. Your time will come. Every man will have opportunity to shine. So prepare and wait. Your time will come. And then we talked about there must be things, people, and places you are willing to sacrifice for stretch. Very important, right? You must make time for learning. Responsibility is your responsibility in transforming your values into action. And don't waste time. And competence is not the way out. Sorry, competence is the only way out. Thank you. Competence is the only way out. Guys, this is time for you to stretch. It's time for you to stretch. And I look forward to being part of your journey to stretch because we always tell you this, upgrade is not a destination. It is a journey. I mean, it's a journey that involves stretch. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.